If you asked me what my fitness goal is, what am I training for? I'd say I exercise to exercise. I lift weights so I can lift heavier and more often. I train conditioning so I can handle longer, cooler cardio sessions. And I put a huge emphasis on injury prevention so I'm not forced to take time off. I exercise so when I get that invite to do some crazy hike or an intense workout or play pickup basketball, that I can handle it and my body's ready to go. Without training for it, I ran a marathon and was back exercising a few days later. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you this so you're as shocked as I was by my next sentence. Even though I train for resilience, I exercise to exercise, I've injured myself multiple times playing pickleball. I didn't tell you that to scare you or have you avoid playing pickleball. Pickleball is an incredibly healthy sport, and you should strive to play it as intense and as consistent as you want to play. But the best way to do that is to stay injury free. Here are my 3 key ways to prevent pickleball injuries. And number 1 might be the most important. Number 1, know when to stop. Understand your body, be intuitive. If you haven't played for a while, start back with 5 minutes, progress slowly to 10, and stop before the injury even happens. Number 2 is prioritize recovery and a strength training program off of the court. And number 3, what I'm about to show you in this video, is do a 5 to 10 minute active warm-up before you play pickleball. This proper active warm-up is designed to both increase your athletic performance and decrease your risk of injury. And although I keep emphasizing this injury prevention, again, I want to say I'm not saying pickleball is inherently dangerous. I know it's here to stay. It's one of the fastest growing sports in America. It's really healthy. It can improve your cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular strength, bone density, blood sugar regulation, hand-eye coordination, balance. It's intergenerational, and yeah, it has a whole host of physiological and psychological benefits. But the best way to reap all of those benefits is to play consistently and not get injured. So follow along with this 5 to 10 minute active warm-up. We're going to work our way up from our feet to our shoulders. You can do this with no equipment at home or at the courts before you go play pickleball. And it's for any level. It's for any training level. I'm going to show you regressions and progressions to each movement. And yeah, the last thing I want to say before I show you the full warm-up is, although you can get a lot of these injury prevention, athletic performance benefits from doing this warm-up, you can only get so much. One of the best ways to get all of those benefits and more is start a strength training program. If you're looking for a strength program, all of my workout programs are completely free. I'll talk about that more at the end of the video, but let's get started with this warm-up. We're going to start the warm-up with tripod foot arches. This sounds like a weird guru exercise, but it's very important to engage the muscles in the bottom of our feet. We have about as many muscles and bones in our hands as our feet, so gaining some of that dexterity and proprioception back in our feet is really important. So it's easiest to learn this warm-up by starting in a collapsed position. That means my ankles are collapsed, my knees are in, and my arches are flat. And then I could pull my knees out from my hips. I don't want that. I want your feet to shrink. You're going to grip the ground, and you're going to pull your arches out, driving your knees out with your feet. So you're just doing 10 of these, gripping the ground, finding tripod foot pressure. Tripod foot pressure means 1 point in your heel and 2 in the top of your feet. That's tripod. I want you to proportionally put your pressure in those 3 points. What does that mean? It means when I'm gripping the ground, driving my knees out and gripping the ground in that tripod foot pressure, I'm not just rolling out to the outside of my feet. I'm really squeezing the arch, shortening my foot, and gripping that ground athletically in that tripod foot pressure. You're just doing 10 of those to warm up the foot. We're going to move on to calf raises. Find any elevated surface. You can roll up a shirt, a towel. You could stand on a stair, a curb, just any edge so you get that nice stretch on the calf. And you're going to drive up, continuing with that activation of the foot, by pushing through the big toe. So this looks like calves, but I want that full stretch and that squeeze so this can help plantar fasciitis if you really drive and work the arch, continue to work the arch of the foot. So you'll see people accidentally roll out to the outside. That's their compensation. But I want you to squeeze inward, finding that arch, maintaining the activation of the foot. 10 calf raises. Okay, moving on to hamstring curls. All you're gonna do for this is load your base leg and drive your heel to your glutes by squeezing your hamstring or the back of this upper thigh. Squeezing it for 10 reps, touch your toe to the ground, drive your heel to your butt, and then 10 on the other leg. Squeezing that hamstring the whole time. Two really common mistakes I see here. The first one, the most common, is letting that knee accidentally drift forward. Keep that knee back the whole time, pivot around the exact same position on that knee. The only thing that's happening is I'm flexing at the knee. There's no movement in my hip. So squeeze. The second most common mistake I see here is not getting into a loaded position on that base leg. You'll just be standing upright. And now I kind of feel hamstring still, but this loaded position is going to be way more athletic, and it's going to translate to pickleball the whole time you're playing the game, this hips back motion. What is that motion? I'm going to call it a lot of different things. Athletic stance, loaded through the hips, a squat, a hinge, and it's incredibly important. We're going to do it in this exercise. You're loading that single leg, and then we're going to do it for the next 3 exercises. So let's just take a quick timeout, 30 seconds, and make sure you know how to hinge. Pushing your hips back. There's 2 ways I could pick something up for the ground or reach for a pickleball. I could flex from my back, I could round my back, or I could soft knee and hinge from the hips. That's the 2 ways I can get my chest down. Obviously, some people are so scared about putting force through their back that they just bend their knees and they stay upright. But it's so athletic and performance enhancing to be able to load the biggest, strongest hip extenders, those glutes. So pushing those hips back. If you're really struggling with this, stand about a foot away from a wall, soft knees, and then flat back, try to touch your butt to the wall. If you can shove your hips back, then you're hinging. High knee to kick back. High knee to kick back. It looks simple, but there's 3 really common mistakes here. First off is what we've already talked about, is forgetting to load the hip on that kickback. If your leg is straight and you're kicking back, now it's just hamstring, Get the glutes involved. High knee, hips back, bend the knee forward, loading that whole leg athletically, kicking back, squeezing the glute. So that's the most common mistake, is not figuring out that healthy loading pattern on that base leg. And then feel free on that kickback to hold something, to really take balance out of the equation, and you can feel that posterior chain more. High knee, up tall, good posture, kick back. And that brings us to the second biggest mistake here, and that is on the high knee, accidentally driving that knee for height is going to round that lower back. That's not the goal here. It's all about the base leg, squeezing the glute, up tall like a string is pulling your head up, and then kick back. So don't let the high knee round the lower back and drop your height. I want up tall, squeeze that base leg glute, and you just finish at that right angle. All the emphasis is on the base leg. Loaded through the base leg on the kickback, loaded through the base leg on the high knee. And then the last mistake that I see is that kickback is coming from the lower back rather than the glute of that kickback leg. Squeeze the glute max. We don't want these erectors, your lower back. They're already, for some people, way overworking. The whole time you're playing pickleball, it's coming from the back. No, use your hips. Use these athletic muscles designed to control your hinge and your hip extension. So that kickback needs to be completely dissociated from lower back extension. So I shouldn't see any arch. You should have a tight core, drive that glute back, while squeezing your abs. Drive that glute back while squeezing your abs so you don't get any arch. And again, feel free to use something for balance. Now we're gonna move on to the deceleration drill. And this is where we're really gonna put that hinge or hip loading posture into practice. So deceleration, watch. All I'm doing is I'm jogging forward and then I'm gonna slow down and decelerate on one leg and then I'm alternating to the other. You're gonna do 5 on each side, just jog forward, chop, and stop. 2 things that you're trying to do when you're going to change direction. Drop your center of gravity, you should get lower, and you should get choppier. This is gonna be really athletic. This is an athletic way to change directions. So not only are you gonna be able to change faster and react quicker, but it's also safer. Why? Because I'm in that loaded hip position. My hips are loaded, they're being pushed back, and now my glutes can take over again. So watch, if I'm upright, changing directions, all the force is driving through my knee. That I get no force absorption from my hips unless I drop my center of gravity and drop my butt down. So work on that. Again, if that means you have to start with squats, always regress back to understanding a squat movement pattern, but we're looking for that. And then once you get confident, run and jog, run and chop. Really work on this 5 yards, maybe even 10 yards of play, but you got to make sure your knees are able to handle it. Most important, start out and just figure out how to do it the right movement. Then you can start adding the velocity and intensity. So you're dropping your center of gravity and you're getting choppy. Some people make the mistake of having a really long last step. I want them to get shorter. So you're jogging, you get choppy. That way you can disperse that absorption, and the hips back means you're loading your glutes, not just your knees. Next exercise is planks. You're gonna do a front plank, a side plank, a side plank. On this front plank, squeezing the abs, my hips are up, I can feel my core. I'm doing elevated planks. That is a great regression. You could start on the back of a couch, work your way to the seat of the couch. You could do a picnic table at the park, work your way down until you feel comfortable holding almost 30 seconds to a minute of that front plank. Squeeze. Now, if you've already got this all day, you can add some dynamic movements to it. So just understand there are progressions to this. You can add a little bit of a rock, squeezing those abs. And remember, you really want to work your way down. Start at the one you can do right and feel in your core. Because as you get lower, you might start just feeling it in your shoulders or lose your abs entirely. Never feel it in your lower back. We're going to move on to a side plank. Tight core. My top leg is in front. Top leg is in front, and I push through the big toe, keeping my hips up, squeezing those obliques and side abs. Again, start in an elevated position and work your way down. If you have a yoga mat or a soft carpet at home, there's one other option. Bend the knees and lift up. I love this half side plank position. Squeezing, I can find my obliques great in this position. And then this lends itself nicely to, hey, I can hold this for 30. Well, why not move on to this for 15? So this is a full side plank. This is a half side plank. So that's the progression. You're going to work your way down in elevation, starting high on the seat of a chair or a couch, working down to low half plank, full plank. Then you can add some dynamic movement to your side plank. So go back to the elevated side plank, squeeze the obliques, and count 10 here on these reps. So this is the end goal, would be 10 dynamic runs elevated, 10 dynamic twists elevated for side plank. Squat rotation, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're gonna squat and twist to each side. Squat and twist. Remember, the first movement I want to see is hips back, chest forward. Hips back, chest forward. Don't be afraid of your knees going forward. Sometimes I see people do an RDL. That puts a lot of the force and torque through the lower back. Bend your knees as well, but don't initiate the squat with a knee bend. That's going to be all quads. That's me initiating with a knee bend, initiate with hips, then let your knee bend. This looks like I'm swinging. I don't want it to translate to your swing. I want it to translate to your reach. If the ball's coming this way, I want you to not just spin with the arm and spine. How about use those legs and the hips to twist either direction? Turn through the hips. You can get a little pivot on that foot, however you want to do it. But we're just really letting this translate that squat to twist, squat to rotate. Work on that. Again, important exercise to get right. Obviously, before the rotation, you can just work on the squat. Send me a video this way and this way. I'm looking for knees out. I'm looking for tripod foot pressure. You're not on your toes. You're not on your heels. You're dropping your butt between your heels and the knees are drifting forward and out to the side. Get the squat done right, then start adding a nice rotation. Very athletic, very important movement to understand. The last two exercises are shoulder care. We're going to start with pinkies, palms, and thumbs. All you're doing for this is doing back flies, pinkies, palms, and thumbs. Three very common mistakes here. If you do this, pinkies, palms, and back flies, just do that for 5 reps and think about fixing these 3 issues. You're going to have no problem doing this right. The first mistake is being too trap dominant. So your upper traps, you're like the muscles leading into your neck, start squeezing too much and you do these back flies while shrugging. Don't do that. Keep your shoulder blades down the entire time. The other mistake that's really common is the lack of shoulder mobility. You can't get your hands back to the wall. Lean against a wall or a fence to do this, to have that external cue. You don't need it, but it really helps know what you're aiming for with that wrist and elbow. But what you lack in shoulder mobility, you try to make up for in thoracic extension. You arch the lower back to get your hands back. Do your best to not do that at all. Tight core, squeeze the abs, chest, big chest, pulling your shoulder blades back and down without flaring the ribs or opening up that rib cage at all. And then the last mistake is, again, not having enough shoulder mobility and reaching your pinkies and palms back, but letting your shoulders roll forward. That's counterproductive. We want shoulder blades back and down the whole time. So if you can keep your traps down, shoulder blades back and down, you can keep your abs engaged, tight core so you're not flaring your ribs, and then the whole time you're squeezing your upper back, you never feel a stress or stretch in the front of the shoulder. You're not compensating and rolling that shoulder forward. You're doing that correctly. Next is external rotation to press, and the 3 mistakes in the other shoulder care apply here as well. You're going to externally rotate and press. Externally rotate and press for 10 reps. Biggest mistake here I see is the traps, is shrugging and feeling the upper back rather than that mid back and rotator cuff and rear delts. Externally rotate and press. Never let your shoulders roll forward. And then again, if you're pulling those palms to the back of the wall, can you do that without flaring the ribs? Tight core, squeeze the abs, external rotation and press. 10 reps. Okay, that's the warm-up. I'm being very particular about the form, so watch this video a couple times. Have someone watch you, do it in front of a mirror, reach out to me, because the form, this is great corrective prehab rehab work. So it's really important to get these movements done correctly and targeting the right areas. And again, this warm-up is a great starting point, but if you really want to see some progress, you want to add some structure, some accountability, and some science to your workouts, then starting a strength training program can be a game changer. All of my workout programs are completely free. It's not just the workout program itself, it's videos on how to follow the program, how to progress the program, how to do each exercise. You have access to me as a personal trainer. Check out my website. Again, all of the workouts are completely free. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. And again, you can always skip to foot arches, whatever that minute mark is. I think 3 minutes and 15 seconds to join in on the warm-up. Do it at home before you go play pickleball or at the courts if you start remembering. Print out that program that I kept flashing up on screen here and there. Good work. I'll see you next time.